Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I think it should be commemorated, definitely, but I don't think that it needs to be an official holiday.
The Queen's funeral, a day off for some, but not everyone. What it means for you and your family. Also,
makes you feel really just on edge, I guess, all the time.
more than 1,000 people forced to flee as a massive wildfire rages in northern BC. And
some of them don't drive, they can't get to hospitals on their own. They need to know that there's an ambulance available.
delays, shortages, closures. BC's mayors plead with the province for more healthcare resources, but the health minister makes no promises.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening, I'm Lien Yeung. Thanks for joining us. Canadians are being encouraged to mourn the Queen during her funeral with a day off. The federal and BC governments have declared next Monday a one-time holiday. However, not every province is following suit. Tonight, Susanna De Silva walks us through what we know about this holiday and who it applies to.
A surprise announcement at the Prime Minister's press conference this morning.
We have also chosen to move forward with a federal holiday on Monday.
Following the lead of some other Commonwealth nations, the Prime Minister announced a one-time holiday for federal employees on the day of the Queen's funeral.
We will be working with the provinces and the territories to try and see that we're aligned on this.
But pretty quickly it became clear they weren't.
I think it's not a good idea to close schools or put parents in a position where they wouldn't be able to work.
Saskatchewan and Ontario followed Quebec's lead. All the Atlantic provinces and British Columbia declared schools and government offices will be closed, while Manitoba will shut non-essential government services and offices. No decision yet from Alberta and the three territories. A holiday can cost employers a lot. That was the worry for most of the day at this Vancouver cafe.
Definitely we want people to come in and see us, but the cost in terms of labor is, 3 times what you're going to pay. So realistically, it's a non-profit day.
I'll be encouraged.
Canada's monarchists are disappointed there won't be a holiday everywhere like there was when the Queen's father died 70 years ago.
But this is a seminal moment in Canadian history that's worth noting, worth pausing for.
Though today, some Indigenous leaders pointed out it took years to get a holiday declared for the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, and it still isn't recognized in some provinces.
It's a stark contrast, and it just shows you the work that needs to be done and the hardships we have.
Also on Monday, a special ceremony in Ottawa after the Queen's funeral in London, including a parade and a 96-gun salute in honor of her long life. Susanna De Silva, CBC News, Vancouver.
As Susanna explained, BC's Premier has declared next Monday a holiday in the province, but not everyone will have the day off. CBC's Isabelle Regam joins us now with more details. So Isabelle, let's drill down a little bit. What does this mean specifically for us here in BC?
And with less than a week's notice, lots of people are wondering who is impacted. Let's start by making it clear this Monday will not be a statutory holiday, and that means private sector employers will not have to pay their staff an additional wage for working that day. Monday will, however, be a holiday for students, specifically those in public schools, grade K through 12, but also public post-secondary institutions. Public workers in the province will also get the day off, thanks to language in their provincial collective agreements. That said, Premier John Horgan declared September 19th as a remembrance to align with the federal holiday and is encouraging private sector employers to acknowledge the day. But again, there will be no requirement to give staff a wage boost for working on that Monday.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you, Isabelle. So how are British Columbians feeling about the decision so far? What's the response been like from the public?
Leanne, the response has been mixed. Let's start with the Surrey Board of Trade, which isn't pleased with the decision, saying that it leaves businesses confused. Writing in part in a statement, the president and CEO saying in part, given that K-12 schools will already be closed, parents, which are part of our workforce, will be left scrambling to find affordable and accessible childcare. We also went to the streets of Vancouver to hear from some people, and the reaction is mixed.
It should be.
Why?
Because she's the longest serving monarch and people love her and they miss her because she's gone now.
I mean, I think it should be commemorated, definitely, but I don't think that it needs to be an official holiday. Is that going to be every year or is it just for Monday?
I think we all deserve an extra day off. And, you know, I think the Queen's funeral is important to a lot of people. Me, not so much, but a lot of people it is, so.
I think so.
Why? How come?
Because holidays are always good.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Canadian provinces have all been taking different approaches to the day. As Susanna mentioned, the maritime provinces will all observe a holiday, but Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan have all opted not to. Leanne?
All right, thank you so much, Isabel, for clarifying for us. Isabel Regem in studio with me tonight. Meanwhile, in London, the Queen's coffin has arrived and has been transported to Buckingham Palace.
Royal salute. Present arms.
The coffin was flown from Scotland to an air base force on the outskirts of the British capital, accompanied by the Queen's daughter, Princess Anne. That was followed by a vehicle procession to Buckingham Palace, met by King Charles and the Queen consort, Camilla. The Queen's coffin will remain at the palace overnight before being moved to Westminster Hall to lie in state. Mourners will have a chance to view the coffin before the Queen's state funeral on Monday. Communities surrounding a northern BC wildfire are on edge as flames spread moment by moment. The Battleship Mountain wildfire has grown to nearly 300 square kilometers. The fire is inching its way towards a major hydro dam, while more than 1,000 evacuees have been told they won't be allowed home for at least a week. Our John Hernandez is on the ground outside of Hudson's Hope and has more on the challenges facing firefighters.
A thick gray haze shrouds this usually scenic valley. The road leading into the small Peace River community of Hudson's Hope closed off amid a raging wildfire. More than 1,000 people have been ordered to leave.
I woke up this morning and it hit me like a ton of bricks that I'm homeless and I have no job.
Esther Allen runs an apartment complex in the municipality and scrambled to get tenants out when the evacuation orders came in.
So I'm going up and down my hallways because I know I still have tenants in house and I'm clapping and everybody's like, well, no, I don't think so. And I'm like, no, it's time to go.
The lightning-caused Battleship Mountain fire has grown to more than 28,000 hectares, making its way just 8 kilometers from the community. It's spread even closer to the WAC Bennett Dam, a major provincial power generator.
It is quite smoky in the area, so visibility is really limited for our crews to get an exact pinpoint.
More than 600 people have registered at this evacuation center in Fort St. John. Many told it will be at least a week before they can go back home.
It'd be nice to have things back to normal, kids in school, jobs every day to go back to.
Hudson Hope is only 86 kilometers from Fort St. John. Very tight relationship, lots of family, lots of friends. What affects them affects us.
This city councillor says the community has rallied to support those forced from their homes, knowing that they could be here for a while.
We still have rooms available. We still have campsites available. We still have people that are reaching out. We have a bulletin board inside set up for anybody who has offerings that they can, directly get in touch with each other.
And warmer, windier weather on the way won't prove much help to those on the front lines.
We do just want to remind people that the fire is still out of control. We are expecting the fire to continue to grow a little bit, and aggressive fire behavior can be expected.
An uphill battle that will persist in the coming days, with wildfire crews fighting for every inch. John Hernandez, CBC News, Fort St. John.
Just southwest of Hope, the Flood Falls wildfire continues to wreak havoc as firefighters struggle to keep that blaze at bay as it continues to grow. The fire is classified as out of control and has now grown to more than 5 square kilometers. The wildfire service has deployed helicopters to douse east and west flanks of the fire. Mayor Peter Robb told CBC earlier today the fire continues to grow westbound and that accessing the blaze has been a challenge for crews on the ground. Air quality remains poor and warnings by Environment Canada remain in place. And meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now. So, Joe, what is our fire danger rating looking like today?
Well, Leanne, unfortunately, there's a lot going on across the province that may shift the balance when it comes to fighting wildfires. We have new thunderstorms happening now in the interior. We still have no rain in the forecast for the northeast. And we do have shifting weather conditions later this week with a new cold front in the forecast. Let me start you off with the wildfire special weather statement in place. Everyone in white. That is where wildfire smoke is going to remain an issue for the next couple of days. Notice the lightning strikes. Those are live lightning detection. We have a little system that has sort of cracked through the high pressure system today. It's spinning across the interior. Again, this is live lightning detection, and we are seeing a lot go off in the interior. Along with the lightning, we are getting some pretty intense downpours. I want to take you basically between Salmon Arm and Revelstoke, where we have had some pretty intense rain associated with that swirling low. So possibility of some localized flooding. Also with these isolated thunderstorms, we'll have to keep an eye out for watches and warnings. If you are outdoors and you see or hear lightning, head indoors. We're not obviously only worried about this for wildfires, but lightning does kill. I wanted to show you the fire danger rating for today. Unfortunately, we are getting a lot of those lightning strikes where we are still high to extreme in the southern interior, but up towards the northeast where 3 of our biggest wildfires of note are still burning. You can see that extreme danger rating, and that's where we're not expecting to see any rain or lightning strikes. Of course, the smoke, as I mentioned earlier, still very much a factor across a huge swath of BC. For Vancouver and the South Coast, that fine particulate matter will be variable over the next couple of days, but that air quality statement reissued today for Metro Vancouver. Leanne, we've got a couple more days to go before a more wide sweeping cold front enters into the picture for the end of the week. I'll break that down coming up.
Okay, thanks, Joe. And just stay with me for 1 second. There is some good news that Flood Hope Fire, there have been evacuation orders and alerts that have been rescinded. So there is some good news, but we'll chat with you more in a little bit. Thanks, Joe.
Sounds good.
Mayors across BC voiced their concerns over emergency room closures, a shortage of doctors and nurses to the Minister of Health today in Whistler. Health Minister Adrian Dix spoke at the Union of BC Municipalities, but as Mira Baines reports, for many, he didn't deliver what many were hoping for.
Across the province, communities have been dealing with emergency room closures due to lack of staffing for months. Mayors and city councillors are asking for solutions right now to recruit health professionals. They say local leaders want to partner with the province to help out.
We're the ones who are hearing stories of nurses and general physicians who are coming to our communities or who are not coming because of lack of accommodation, lack of daycare, lack of an employment for the spouse. We can help with that.
Experts say rural communities are the canary in the coal mine in terms of the crisis in healthcare. The situation in some communities is at a crisis point, and there could be more pressure on the healthcare system through the fall and winter as flu season hits and there is a potential resurgence of COVID.
Our emergency room has been closed at nighttime since the beginning of August.
When you have a retirement community, you have a lot of older people. Some of them don't drive, they can't get to hospitals on their own. They need to know that there's an ambulance available.
Some community leaders suggested student loan forgiveness, affordable housing for healthcare workers. Still, the province didn't offer more than what the province is already doing. Health Minister Adrian Dix listed what the province has been doing to improve the healthcare system, including a human resources plan to recruit more nurses and doctors. Dix says the province is working on building out the province's primary care network by setting up urgent care centers.
And we're going to see those announcements over the coming weeks, but it certainly wasn't my intention today to come here and to make this a set piece for my announcement. It was to listen to people.
The president of the Ambulance Paramedics of BC says the province needs to attract paramedics with better pay and have short-term solutions in place.
If you're in Clearwater and your ambulance has gone to Kamloops because the hospital closed or out of community for a period of time, that secondary ambulance needs to be paid and put on coverage so that people in your community are left without an ambulance. Insert town here.
A panel of experts said a series of short-term and long-term solutions are needed to recruit more healthcare professionals while retaining workers dealing with burnout. Mira Baines, CBC News, Whistler.
One man has been charged following a stabbing attack in Vancouver's Chinatown. 43-year-old Dennis Amanand Prasad has been charged with aggravated assault. The attack happened Sunday night and left a meal delivery worker with life-threatening injuries. Vancouver police say the suspect was arrested within 30 minutes of the incident. According to police, he does not have a criminal history in Vancouver and appears to be new to the city. Prasad is in custody and set to appear in court Tuesday afternoon. A 21-year-old man has been sentenced to life in prison after he shot and killed a man in Burnaby last year. Ahmed Riaz Tahir was sentenced last week, according to the RCMP's Integrated Homicide Investigation Team. He will not be eligible for parole for 17 years. In June, Tahir pled guilty to the second-degree murder of Blurton Delipi, whom he gunned down in broad daylight as the 19-year-old left a vape store. RCMP say both Tahir and Delipi were known to police at the time of the shooting. Vancouver Mayor Kennedy Stewart has unveiled an ambitious housing plan ahead of next month's municipal election. Stewart, who is running for re-election, has put forward a 5-point plan which aims for more social housing and cooperatives within the city. The plan also includes tougher renter protection and a pledge to maintain the empty home tax.
We will approve and enable 220,000 new homes all across Vancouver over the next 10 years. This is triple the current Vancouver housing strategy targets.
Stewart says creating large impact projects in the community would be his priority, along with modernizing the public hearing process and permitting at City Hall. Most people in Greater Vancouver and the Fraser Valley have, at some point, been infected with COVID-19. That's according to a new study co-authored by BC's top doctor. Dr. Bonnie Henry and the study's other researchers say last year at this time, less than 14% of people had contracted COVID. But after Omicron started sweeping through BC, that number jumped to over 60%. Close to 80% of children under 19 have been infected, but less than 40% of adults over 60 years have been sick. The study is based on 14,000 anonymous blood samples taken since March 2020. The Canadian Coast Guard is among several groups trying to contain a fuel spill after a tour boat sunk off of Haida Gwaii. In a Facebook post, the Coast Guard writes it is on site in Carpenter Bay, attending to the sunken remains of the boat MV Island Bay. The tour boat sunk Saturday, and there are concerns it may release hydrocarbons into the water. The Council of the Haida Nation have identified several sensitive areas that could be affected. The boat's owner is making plans for the vessel to be salvaged. A high-speed rail connecting BC with Washington State and Oregon could possibly be on track to reality. BC put down another $300,000 to look into how that might work. That money would go into the next phase of studies led by Washington State, which BC first signed up for in 2016. The electric Cascadia rail would run along the Pacific Northwest at around 400 kilometers per hour, with key stops in Vancouver, Seattle, and Portland. BC has already chipped in $300,000 in previous studies. It claims it would have significant economic benefits for BC. Now, the governments will look into funding requirements, public outreach, environmental reviews, and land use planning. The estimated cost of the project is $42 billion. It may be mid-September, but our forest fire season is still going strong. We speak to a fire ecologist about a lengthening season and the impacts. That's next. And thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. Beaches were a popular weekend destination this last season, but things like E. coli, littered shores, and dirty water may have detracted a few visitors in BC. But over in southern Newfoundland, there's one beach people wanted to avoid thanks to a creature with tentacles as long as a utility pole. The CBC's Terry Roberts checked it out.
Sun, sand, and a bit of surf. Another beautiful day here in Point Lance. But this summer, some strange things have been happening here on this beautiful beach. Point Lance Beach has become a wildlife wasteland, but this is what everyone is talking about. It's called a Portuguese man-o'-war.
In the ocean, it's a sight to behold. A colorful gas-filled bladder keeps it afloat. And there's this, a vertical membrane that acts as a sail. But it's beneath the surface where the danger lurks. Threads as long as 30 meters, each with thousands of stinging cells. just waiting for the next meal to come along. They've been seen in Newfoundland waters before, but the surf has deposited large numbers of them onto the beaches around here in recent weeks.
I've been travelling this beach now for the last 55 years, and I'd never seen before.
In rare cases, humans can die from a man-o-war sting, so people are a little alarmed.
None of the community they don't walk the beach now. They're afraid.
This beach is a hidden gem, 2 kilometers of toe-sifting sand. But this summer, unprecedented scenes of death. An outbreak of avian flu was the first sign of trouble.
I've counted probably 50, 60 gannets and probably 50, 60 tars.
There's the natural mortality, like this seal carcass. But a few weeks ago, these things started showing up as well.
I've counted 50 of them man-o-war.
So what's going on? Why are these warm water creatures bringing their toxic tentacles and a body that resembles an ancient Portuguese warship to remote Point Lance?
I don't know that there's any reason to be particularly alarmed in this instance.
This floating ocean organism is related to the jellyfish, but is poorly understood, so experts can only offer theories. This university professor believes it's a combination of unusually warm waters and the strong currents of the Gulf Stream, pushing the man-o-war north.
I would say that generally speaking, they are consistent with a lot of the patterns that we're seeing with climate change. And so warming waters, we see warmer species.
Snellgrove believes this is a one-off.
If we see them every year, I would be a little alarmed because that would be quite a change.
People around here don't know what to make of it all. They've just lived through a pandemic. Their church is being sold out from underneath them. Dead birds are washing up on the beach. And now this foreign creature, this so-called man-o-war. Terry Roberts, CBC News, Point Lance.
In the year 2050, how will BC look? From agriculture to cities, how will climate change life? Don't miss 2050, Degrees of Change, a CBC Vancouver original podcast, now available.
Welcome back. Before the break, we took you to Hudson's Hope, where the Battleship Mountain wildfire has forced more than 1,000 people to evacuate their homes.
Wildfire officials expect the fire's aggressive behavior to carry forward through the coming days as warm and dry conditions persist, and with little rain in the regional forecast, and temperatures are hovering 5 to 6 degrees above seasonal.
Battleship Mountain is one of 5 wildfires of note in the province, many of which were discovered in just the past few weeks. But will BC's fire season carry on later than usual? Those are questions both me and Johanna had. For that, we turn to Michael Flanagan, the BC Research Chair in Predictive Services, Emergency Management and Fire Science at Thompson Rivers University. Hi, Michael. So to start, is this considered late for a wildfire season in BC?
It's not unusual, but it's a bit late, and it's been a kind of unusual season because we started off really slow, and then the summer heat came and the fire season came with it, and more recently all that smoke has suddenly appeared.
Certainly has.
Yeah, Michael, as we do get into later in the season, we're losing daylight obviously across the province. I've always been curious, how much of a role does that play in ending our season versus the fact that our fires are, so intense right now?
So there's a number of factors. Precipitation is one. Once the fall rains and snows start, that pretty well ends the fire season. Shorter day lengths does play a major role because at night it gets cooler, relative humidities go up, winds go down. Occasionally we get nighttime burning. If you get really strong windy conditions, it can still burn at night, but generally it helps wind down the season. And right now we're getting a little cooler weather with some showers, but also some lightning, which may set off new fires. So we have over 60 out of control fires, and we don't need any new fires. and this cooler period's going to last for a little while with the showers, and then it looks like it's warming up again. So fire season may not be over yet. It may go to the end of September, maybe even beyond.
Yeah, speaking of, to the beyond part, eventually we'll get into our wet fall patterns. But in this case, especially for these big fires burning in the Northeast, are we worried about these fires, burning underground all year round? I've heard them referred to as zombie fires.
The zombie fires, yes. These large fires can smolder for days, weeks, months, and yes, even years. And that's the term zombie fire, because they can overwinter. Spring comes and the snow melts and the fire is still there. It pops up once it gets hot, dry, and windy, and away we go. So yes, it is a concern. And right now, the Battleship Mountain fire is a concern because of the evacuations, and it has been ripping on the weekend. It's still quite active, and it doesn't look like there's any precipitation there until hopefully this weekend.
Yes, hopefully. And you know what? Anything named zombie is never a good thing, right? So, Michael, I want to know, are we seeing a trend towards wildfire season, getting extended through to the fall with our changing climate?
So the biggest change thus far has been in the spring, actually. And our wildfire seasons are getting longer in parts of Canada, including BC and Alberta, notably. Earlier springs, earlier fires. But as we continue to warm, our fire seasons will get longer and longer and longer. Even though as fall, we do have those shorter day lengths, that does help damp it down, but it's the fall rains that really put an end to the season. And we just haven't seen those yet. It's still September, so hold on. The rains will come, the fire season will end, the smoke will go away. We just have to wait. It may be a few weeks yet, though.
Okay, we will have to be patient. That's all the time, though, that we have for today. Thank you so much, Michael Flanagan. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Tackling the rising price of just about everything. The federal government announced new measures for Canadians. So how might you see a bit more money in your pocket? And the criticisms being leveled. That story next.
We reported last week on the decline of home prices in Vancouver, but houses in Vancouver are still the most expensive in North America, and apartment rents are among the most expensive. As Russ Patrick reports, college and university students are particularly hard hit this month as they search for a place to live.
The apartment vacancy rate in Vancouver is the lowest in the country, nearly 0%. And what is available is very expensive. A bachelor apartment can easily cost $350 to $500 a month. And rooms in private homes are also very expensive.
It would seem that prices are up generally 25 to 35%. That may be a reflection of mortgages that people are having to renew, or it may be some instance of people believing that the market supply situation allows them to charge more for accommodation.
Another problem facing students is the severe shortage of dormitory housing. At the University of BC, 7,000 students have signed up for on-campus housing. There are beds for only half that many. Simon Fraser University has 1,500 applications for 220 beds. At UBC, they've distributed 50,000 copies of this flyer, begging people to put up a student. New listings are posted every day, but many of them feature accommodations that are less than desirable.
What are you getting $475 in one of these basement suites?
Just a room, that's it. You might have to share a bath, or you may have your own bathroom. Nothing else, no cooking.
No, not even a hot plate
Not
or
even
anything?
a hot plate. This is just a room, a sleeping room, bedroom.
But not all students are having to settle for minimum housing at maximum prices. Laurie Knapp from Mississauga, Ontario, had almost given up trying to find accommodation when a room in the Peggy Forward house was listed. Forward's son is going to school back east this fall, and she decided to rent out his room. With 3 meals a day, it'll go for $300 a month. But not everyone is that lucky.
Where are you from? From Halifax.
How long have you been looking?
Been looking for a week now.
And how does the situation look?
It doesn't look very good at all.
How much are you going to have to pay?
About $400 for 2 people.
Basement suite?
Yeah, most likely, without a kitchen.
The people who run BC's colleges and universities are worried their enrollments are going to drop if out-of-town and out-of-province students stop coming to the West Coast because of the scarcity and high cost of housing. Russ Patrick, CBC News, Vancouver.
The Prime Minister announced new measures today aimed at helping low-income Canadians struggling with the high cost of living. The announcement was delayed after the Queen died last week and was released today after the new Conservative leader slammed Trudeau and accused him of being out of touch with Canadians struggling to pay their bills. CBC reporter Ashley Burke is at the Liberal caucus retreat in New Brunswick and has more.
If I get a photo to send back to Australia? Of course.
It almost feels like an election campaign.
Good to see you, of course. What's your name?
The Prime Minister shaking hands with voters in New Brunswick and announcing a new policy.
There are Canadians out there really hurting. What we're doing with these specific measures is targeting those most vulnerable, those who are most hard hit by the increases in inflation.
The proposed legislation would double the GST benefit for 6 months, provide a $500 payment to low-income renters, and up to $650 a year for some families with children to help pay for dental visits.
And we have won.
The NDP's leader says none of it would have happened if their party hadn't pushed for it since the spring.
And the response from the Liberal government, from Justin Trudeau, has been, it's not our fault, or it's worse in other countries. Neither of those responses helps a family that is hurting right now because the cost of living is going up.
The Conservatives' new leader also tried to take credit.
Justin Trudeau might have learned the lesson from the fact that I won the leadership. He suddenly took an interest in inflation. After 2 years of my warning him that his inflationary money printing deficits would cause this problem.
He said Trudeau's out of touch and has called the Liberal and NDP deal a radical woke coalition. Liberal ministers don't agree.
Frankly, I don't even know what it means to be woke. I think we have to get used to that. That's the kind of politics he wants to bring in our country.
Thanks, everyone.
Trudeau also attacked Poilievre's style of politics.
The Conservatives choosing a path of amplification of anger and misinformation, instead of actually figuring out how to respond to the real threat of climate change, how to respond to the real threat of making sure everyone is included in the economic growth.
A well-known Conservative MP in Quebec, Alain Reyes, announced today that he's leaving the Conservative caucus, saying that his values are not in line with the party's new direction. Ashley Burke, CBC News, St. Andrews, New Brunswick.
We're into week 2 at many colleges and universities across Canada, but thousands of international students missed orientation and are still not in class. That's because they can't get the required study permits. Immigration Canada says it's implementing several measures to help tackle the backlog, but as Talia Ricci tells us, students stuck waiting are upset and losing money.
Right now, definitely very stressed. Filled with anxiety.
SJ planned to study life sciences at University of Toronto, but she's still in Singapore. CBC Toronto isn't using her full name because she fears speaking out might affect her study permit application.
I don't think I sleep too well nowadays because I'm just so worried about not being able to basically start my first year of college.
The IRCC says the average processing time is 12 weeks, which SJ has now waited. The government says as of August 18th, the number of study permit applications to be processed was 163,600. It says 64% of those applications are currently within its service standard of 60 days. Canada's immigration minister says they're working to reduce the pressure on the system.
There's no silver bullet to this, though. We recently shared that we're adding 1,250 staff to our department just to boost processing. The numbers that I'm seeing are starting to show that we're going to be trending in the right direction.
The Canadian Alliance of Student Associations says it's been hearing from frustrated international students who have yet to arrive and have lost thousands of dollars canceling flights and paying rent. That's also what one immigration and refugee lawyer is hearing from some of his clients.
So they miss Welcome Week, they miss getting to know campus, they miss introductions to friends, and those things that are really core to any student's university experience. Even pushing back their start date by a couple of weeks can have thousands of dollars in implications.
We're seeing frustration, we're seeing pain, we're seeing confusion, and we're seeing a failing system. If IRCC, for example, look at the numbers, look at how many resources they're available, say, unfortunately, many of you won't be processed. You can govern yourself accordingly. That has not happened.
The IRCC says it's publishing monthly data online to keep Canadians up to date on its progress toward reducing the backlogs. Students like SJ waiting in limbo hope they'll be on a plane to Canada soon.
Every one of my friends that I know of, they're starting university anywhere that they want to, and then all their studies have began. They probably have made new friends, and I'm still stuck at home, and I don't know when I can go.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
We are learning more about the string of shootings in Ontario that left 2 dead, including a police officer, as the community responds to the tragedy. First responders and residents laid wreaths at the scenes of the killings. Ethan Musa has the latest on the victims and the investigation.
The shooting death of a police officer in broad daylight is serving as a reminder of the ultimate risk that first responders sometimes face.
I imagine first responders across Canada have embraced their loved ones a little bit more as they walked out to go to work today.
What motivated a lone gunman to fatally shoot Toronto police officer Andrew Hong, a father of 2, Monday afternoon, is not known, but authorities say the attack was unprovoked. It all started here, at a Tim Hortons in Mississauga, Ontario. Hong was on his lunch break when a gunman shot him at close range. Moments later, the suspect shot a man and stole his Jeep Cherokee SUV. This woman was loading her baby into a car when it all unfolded.
He was in the parking lot, kind of just loitering. I didn't really pay it any attention at the time. Now I realize how close I was to a really bad situation.
Peel police initially identified 30-year-old Sean Petrie as the suspect in a province-wide emergency alert, and they said they believed that same suspect was responsible for a second shooting less than an hour later in a Milton auto body shop. 3 people were shot there, including mechanic and owner Shakil Ashraf, who died of his injuries. Also a father of 2, friends and family say he was an avid cricket player and beloved in his community.
He was a gem of a person, always happy-go-lucky, always cheered people up that were around him.
After fleeing Milton, officials say the suspect then headed to Hamilton, where Ontario's police watchdog says officers from 2 different police services confronted him in a cemetery and fatally shot him. The circumstances of his death are now being investigated. Idil Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
The National Holocaust Monument in Ottawa is meant to honor the 6 million Jews killed during the Second World War. But as Nicole Williams reports, the Jewish community in the city says it is concerned about how some people are using the monument as a backdrop in photo shoots, fashion campaigns, and music videos.
Stepping into the monument, it's hard not to be overcome with somber reflection. Towering gray concrete walls, a flame of remembrance, symbols and signs everywhere, dedicated to the millions of Jews murdered in the Second World War. But the monument's striking design has consistently attracted another kind of audience. From Instagram selfies to music videos to fashion campaigns like this, people have used the public monument as a backdrop ever since it was inaugurated in 2017.
To use it as a backdrop for your art is a complete and utter desecration, and it is somewhat unfathomable to me that nobody's learned this lesson yet.
It's one this local fashion brand recently learned the hard way. It posted these videos filmed at the monument on its website and social media channels last year, advertising its newest collections. But recently, the videos have gotten a lot of attention online, and criticism has been growing.
And this is a memorial to one of the worst genocidal events in history. 6 million people murdered, and among the 6 million were 1.5 million children. I was one of the lucky ones, if you like, because I was survived. So it just seems very sad and very disappointing.
After CBC reached out to the company, the owner issued this apology. She says, from a creative perspective, the artistry of the memorial seemed to be a perfect fit for what my team and I were looking for aesthetically for that particular campaign. I offer my deepest apologies and regret making this decision. I made an honest and immature mistake as a new business owner. The videos have since been deleted, but members of Ottawa's Jewish community say this isn't the first time this has happened and likely won't be the last.
It is clearly understood that Canadians lack the information that they should have about the Holocaust. And so that calls for more education, more Holocaust education within the school system, more education around the monument.
The people I spoke to say taking and sharing photos and videos here is okay, as long as it's in the spirit of educating others about the Holocaust, because even though this is a public space and there are no official rules about how to use it, that's what this monument is for. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Canadian government has announced $25 million in aid to flood-ravaged Pakistan. It will also match donations up to a total of $3 million. Pakistan has been inundated by months of monsoon rains. As Salima Shivji reports, more than 1,000 people have been killed, with millions homeless and facing an imminent food shortage.
The pain of the displaced is immeasurable, excruciating. Many millions in Pakistan, forced to leave their submerged homes with only what they could salvage, are now perched precariously in tents, exposed to the elements. We're sitting in the open with a storm blowing through, this man says. Our families, our children are miserable. Please help us, he pleads. For weeks now, the record monsoon rains have been violent and relentless, joining with glacial melt to drive up floodwaters, overpowering more than a third of the country. Homes, roads, livelihoods, all gone, with aid barely making it to many areas. Pakistan's army is now scrambling to protect a crucial power plant in the south, one that supplies electricity to millions of Pakistanis.
90% of district Dadu is underwater. We still are on our toes until and unless these floods, these waters, these hill torrents are finally passed.
Even as more rain is on the way, the effects of climate change crystal clear in a nation that barely produces carbon emissions and yet is bearing the brunt of the devastation fueled by greenhouse gas emissions. On the weekend, the Secretary General of the United Nations toured the worst-hit areas, an attempt to train the world's eyes squarely on a country ravaged by extreme weather, to drum up critical global financial support. A message again hammered home at the UN headquarters in New York.
That the people of Pakistan is in dire need. Unfortunately, not the first time, but it is the last moment we can make change.
A plea that the people of Pakistan hope travels far as they brace for more rains, with despair setting in, amid the realization it could take months before these floodwaters fully recede. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Mumbai.
It might draw some of the biggest names from Hollywood, but it's not just the stars taking center stage. Emerging filmmakers are also getting their due. What it takes to make it to TIFF, that's coming up. And it is 6:43 p.m. There's your live look at Revelstoke tonight, where heavy rain has hit the mountain city. That rain, good news for the firefight, but storms also bring increased risk. Johanna has her full forecast next.
look in books and see what an elephant looked like and things like that. And then that's when it came to me. I said, no, we're not gonna look at elephant in books. We're gonna go see elephant. Botswana to go to Zambia. About 30 seconds after we crossed the border, there's that big elephant that came by the road right up to the cars. It was, the kids were really excited. I'm just really grateful that at least they got that, you know, even if they go blind tomorrow, this is something that they can keep forever.
And Johanna is back with us for more on the forecast. So Joe, just before the break, we saw that shot of Revelstoke and saw that heavy rain. And of course, with that, the lightning storms. Hey, it's scary stuff for the firefighters who are out there.
Yeah, you said it. And it is just going off right now, Leanne. I would say we have at least a few hundred lightning strikes happening hour by hour across the interior. Take a look at the live lightning detector. I've just set the radar lightning and satellite back 3 hours. So that's the loop you're watching right now. But yeah, really firing up basically from Hope all the way down through the Kootenays and up into, not quite making it up into the Quesnel, Williams Lake, Prince George region, but not out of the question over the next couple of days. That's thanks to this little swirling low that just pushed into our high pressure ridge. You can see it swirling slowly towards the border. Tomorrow, another round of thunderstorms. And then again, Thursday, you can see those sort of widespread green splotches the next couple of afternoons. That's the thunderstorm risk. Now dry your eyes to that green line extending from Port Hardy up through Terrace. That's the cold front that'll arrive for Friday. Now, all of this not bringing any rain to the northeast where we really need it for our big fires, but that cold front will bring a change in temperatures across the province after we get through those thunderstorms. Brush right past those current temperatures, 22 in Osoyoos right now, 21 for Kelowna. Everyone running a degree or two above seasonal across southern BC. Waiviard at 19 right now, Abbotsford at 19 as well. We'll be above seasonal for one more day. As I mentioned earlier, watching for wildfire smoke right across much of the province, the south and the northeast. So this is a forecast without taking into account the haziness. A lot of that sunshine might not be out in full force, but notice the thunderstorms possible in through the Okanagan and the Kootenays tomorrow. Fresh air up towards Prince Rupert, Dease Lake and Prince George. Again, you should be above the worst of the thunderstorm risk, but getting into that wildfire smoke just to the north of you. Okay, breaking down the forecast because again, there are a lot of things happening. Couple more Hazy days for the south coast. That's also where we're watching for the thunderstorms in the interior. Above seasonal by almost a degree based on our 1981 to 2010 seasonal averages anyway. And then notice the rain icon. Now, it's not a soaking rain for Friday and Saturday. I mean, some of the models I've been looking at bring maybe 5 millimeters over the course of Friday and Saturday. Not enough to really replenish the drought conditions across the south coast, Leanne, but it's going to feel good. It lines up for a weekend, but...
Yes, it's going to feel good. I'm going to dig out those rain boots. I'm excited for it.
Oh, yeah, same.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
One of the world's most influential filmmakers, JeanLuc Godard, has died at the age of 91.
The Shades. Humphrey Bogart. Renoir. Le Derrière.
That is a trailer from his landmark film, Breathless, a story of aimless young lovers that helped launch the French New Wave. With its open and offbeat approach to sex and counterculture, directors like Martin Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola helped bring that style to the world. Godard once compared his films to the albums of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. He said their music was popular and intellectual at the same time, and that's what he tried to do with his films. Well, beyond the big-name actors and directors at the Toronto International Film Festival, there are also emerging filmmakers making their TIFF debut this year. Lisa Singh looks at what it took for some to get to one of the world's largest film festivals.
Seems like at some point in time we've both been mistaken for Indians.
In V.T. Nayani's feature debut, the queer love story between a Tamil woman and Indigenous Iranian woman speaks to the difficult family legacies both face. It's just one of the films by an emerging filmmaker at TIFF this year.
It's a dream come true, but a dream that we were measured about.
Getting to one of the biggest film festivals in the world wasn't easy. Director V.T. Nayani started working on it 9 years ago.
We wrote the film for almost 4 years without being paid, and I think especially for BIPOC filmmakers, queer filmmakers, just anyone who's been marginalized and kind of lives on the outside, even still for women filmmakers, gender diverse filmmakers, it's really difficult.
You guys finding everything okay today?
Do you work here? The biggest challenge is funding. 8 films at TIFF this year received grants from Telefilm Canada. At the time, this place got $125,000, which wasn't enough. Production was halted until Nayani's team could secure more. Telefilm has since doubled the maximum amount to $250K.
We really want them to be successful, and we see around us, films from the States have incredibly large budgets. So how do we compete with that?
Doing research and spending time.
Sometimes getting that funding is all about who you know, according to this director and film professor who's also debuting his feature at TIFF.
It's always hustling a little bit to meet people and show the film and try to advocate for the film and make sure that that it gets seen by as many people as possible.
While getting your film accepted at TIFF isn't essential to making it in the business, it is a major platform to get exposure as well as contacts, considering the film festival draws about 500,000 people each year. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
It's a mystery that baffled internet sleuths for years. In a family photo, a TV was showing that cartoon, but nobody could figure out exactly what that show was. But now we have the answer. You want to stay tuned to find out.
We're in the New Brunswick Agricultural Museum, who have taken possession of my father's tool collection. It brings back a lot of memories of growing up, just seeing the tools that he had and the work that he had done. It just brings back those memories. I didn't realize some of this stuff was really old until much, much later in life. Some of these tools go back 4 generations from my father, so it'd be 5 for me. When it came to a point where we had to decide what we were going to do with the tools, we as a family didn't really want to break it up because we knew that was not what this was all about. We approached the museum and they eventually agreed to take it on. A lot of these are actually handmade. Each carpenter would make his own tools. He would make them to suit the way he did the work. But each one of them has a specific story. For them to kind of hang on to that and pass that on to their kids. Some of it was passed down from his family through the generations. A good portion of it was probably he just picked up at yard sales, you know, wherever they traveled. He would always be looking for tools. He would probably barter and buy it and then take it home, and he would eventually clean it up, restore it into working order. All of these tools work. There's nothing here that doesn't work. That's an exact picture of what was in the basement. The museum has maintained that pretty much, because each of the brackets were individually made for each piece. The museum wanted to know if they could have the wall. Some of them have been there long enough that if you move the tool off their hanger, you can actually see where the varnish is yellowed, where the tool was. That's the Stanley molding plane. Router in today's age would have replaced what that was designed for. This would have been used to set the mortise part of the beam. This would move and turn the drill, which would rough out the slot, and then they would use a chisel to square up the edges. That, for example, is a tape measure, an early version of a tape measure, the one that you pull out. This would be used for making dowels or pointing dowels, which was used quite a bit in like mortise and tenon or like joints, joinery, wood.
We all have them, boxes of old photographs, and sometimes it can be hard to put names and places to faded shots from years ago. But what if it wasn't a person you were trying to identify? Yvette Bren tells us how trying to find out about a cartoon elf in a holiday photo turned into something of an international sleuthing adventure.
It all started with a photo snapped in Ottawa more than 30 years ago. 3 kids in front of a TV. Frozen on the screen behind them was the face of a bearded elf.
My dad just wanted to capture the moment of us, you know, just having some nice family time and I guess that was just on in the background.
Years later, Emily Charette showed the image of her and her siblings to her office. People were intrigued by the elf in the image. When a coworker posted the image, it went viral.
I just thought it was wild.
For 6 years, no one on the internet could place that elf, but the truth was out there somewhere.
For like a week, this was like my full-time job, like keeping up with this stupid thing on Tumblr. And then it, you know, it kind of faded or whatever. And it would kind of just pop up like every couple of years.
Elfman became an obsession for a lot of people. The New Yorker wrote about the elf. Bloggers posted about him, looking for clues. Was he a Smurf or one of the Littles? Not long after this tweet, saying hundreds of people have seen this image, but nobody knows what it's from. If you recognize this man, please tell me. 2 Wisconsin brothers knew they'd seen that elf before.
Just going through different Google searches, trying to figure out, something with aliens and saving Christmas. And it's like all those search results were nothing close to what I remember.
After so many dead ends, they found him.
There were a couple that I found on eBay for I think I paid maybe $10, $15 for it. And when I got it, showed it to all of our friends and they got a kick out of it.
The night before Christmas.
It was a Questar home video series, and the episode was called The Gift of Light, starring Al Waxman.
No one can replace Santa.
The animator said it aired on CBC in the 90s.
Going back to it, it's like, wow, these were terrible. Yeah. Why did we love these so much?
Yeah. Your evil toys are ready to be delivered.
But maybe it was about the journey back to childhood memories shared by many.
That was my main hope when I saw that. It was like some random family that just had this weird memory as kids, and it makes me so happy that I was at least able to give them some closure on that and finally they could finally watch it, even if they don't care about the cartoon anymore. Just the fact that now they know what it is.
Yvette Bren, CBC News, Vancouver.
Oh, that was a fun story. It's really about the journey. My goodness, 6 years they put it on the internet and no one could figure it out? Well, very cool. Mystery solved. All right, that does it for us tonight on CBC News Vancouver at 6. A reminder to check us out on CBC Gem. You might catch a classic CBC show on there. And of course, our newscast. And in the late chair tonight, Isabel Regem will be here, and I'll be back here tomorrow at 6. Have a good night.